Hello, it is Duck Westlin and the Winnie to my Pooh, Mr. Squid. Oh no,
Hello, everyone.
you didn't just see. No one noticed. All right, hi.
Sure.
No one noticed that. Okay, cool. Um, so last week we covered mostly the tournament scene and a lot of focus on sideboarding. This week we're going to talk about nothing tournament related. Uh,
Yep.
Not because we hate tournaments, but because I hate twos tournaments, which isn't entirely the truth. It's just harder for me to analyze. I don't play twos. I haven't played. I've the only twos tournament I played in was like I played in some very non-serious ones. I don't have much inputs that's worth adding. I don't play enough twos to give reasonable input on the subject.
I play twos, but I'm just a memer, so who cares?
Yeah.
Where is my fan? How
Oh
am I
well.
supposed to do a podcast without a fan?
Parent.
Well,
I
this
mean,
is a travesty, and oh, found it. We're good.
but we do have something else that is important to cover, and it's something near and dear to my heart. Is talking about the battle passes as they're kind of the only way we get content for this game anymore. Um,
Yes.
and when we were doing the other podcast prior to being under TCL, the last podcast we did was a review of the Sand Wars. Was that what it was called? Uh,
Yes, the Sand Wars Battle Pass.
yeah, which was kind of a spin on Star Wars, as they kind of did their logo that way. And there was a lot to talk about and make fun of. And if we ever, in some point, we will need to do a retrospective on that whole battle pass. But we also never have talked about the quest for Mountain Shaper yet, um, which
This
is
is true, and so we're going to fix that.
yes, which is our most recent podcast. So I think the first bit of content which needs to be addressed is the big thing that came out with the Battle Shaper pod or Battle Pass, even though it's not
Adventures.
adventures, even though it's not directly part of the Battle Pass, it's kind of advertised as part of it, kind of like how you don't unlock it with the Battle Pass, but it came out as part of the theme, and the skins were in it.
Adventures are great. Adventures best part of Minion Masters.
No,
Thank you.
I know you are a fan of adventures. There's a few things I liked about adventures. I mean, it's nice that it's like actually gives you an opportunity to play the game solo, but I also have some issues with it. Um, it's
Well, you have issues with a lot of things. We'll get into it.
yeah, but I guess I should first talk about what I do like about it. I mean, when it first came out and I played it on the playtest realm, I was like, okay, this is the most fun I've had with Minion Masters in a while, and it finally felt like something really fresh and refreshing. And I also like games in that genre, like Slay the Spire and uh, Over Dungeon were two that I spent a decent amount of hours into. So having this with Minion Masters was a positive. All right, hold on. Who's making fun of me?
Everyone with a brain.
Oh, well, that's reasonable. Um, so I think it advertised build your deck as you go. Unique masters, unique fights, relics and treasures, and hard mode. I guess the first thing we have to talk about is hard mode. Does it, when it's difficult, does it feel like rewarding difficult, like your skill matters, or does it just kind of feel like, oh, this deck counters my deck? It's not really. I couldn't get the cards to build it. Was this fun? Like, where are your thoughts on how the difficulty comes across?
My general impression of adventures is that adventures were a pretty good addition. I think they are a pretty necessary addition. One of the bigger issues with Minion Masters is that there's not a once you play enough of ladder is just going to be the same, and maybe you can do draft, but it's a lot of repetition as you get further in. Adventures add another dimension of content that I do enjoy. I think there are some issues with adventures. Yeah, I think I'd agree with Hamas there. The issue with adventures is that the AI is just not prepared to deal with things players do.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big problems I had with some of the adventures is like, if you get a harb in at any point and you get the Spawn of Fury relic, you just win
Mm-hmm.
because they never have an answer to a harb, and if you've got two, they just don't know what to do and they immediately die.
Yeah.
They're very bad at dealing with air units. But I overall liked it. I would take some wax at Bara and at Sneaky Assassin. I think those two were particularly unsatisfying.
I think Sneaky Assassin's the one that swaps your deck, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. That one was
uh,
never particularly difficult. It's just annoying.
yeah, that one I don't think I lost to. I just never had fun playing against it.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the difference. I think that there are, like, I think those need to adjust a bit to make it so that they are challenging but fun. Currently, there are some that are neither all that challenging nor all that fun. One of them that I really like is like that, the Void, the Summoning Void, where it summons a Swarmer every time you damage it, but it has no innate auto attack. It is really fun to play that. Also, it's really fun to accidentally summon 65 Swarmers when you've got no AoE clear and kill yourself with 65 Swarmers.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I
hilarious.
I thought that one was pretty fun. The one that was like frustrating but also kind of an interesting like for mind games was the one where you kill something and it stuns your units.
Yeah.
That one was that one is more of a puzzle to play than other. I don't know. It's not like, I mean, none of them are so hard you can't beat them, and especially if you pick Jolo, who kind of auto wins everything.
Yeah, that's the other critique I have. YOLO as the master is just like really good and can win on his own. And then you have like Milo that if you build the deck correctly is also kind of a free win because you have infinite spells and you have a bunch of crystal things that are really good.
Okay,
And
which
then there's like Demon Warrior, and none of the perks matter. And it's not that good, and it doesn't have like a good auto attack, and just everything about it is not that
whoa,
strong.
what's the spinning guy? Should know his name.
The spinning guy,
We'll just call him Mr. Spinny, Mr. Spinsy.
Mr. Spinsy.
He's very unsatisfying for me to play. I mean, because it's supposed to reward playing big units, and then whenever I play it, sometimes I can't even draft units to take advantage of his perks.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
I think
until you hit perk 3, and then you just win the game. But then you play
yeah,
against the Stormy person with that deck, and you can't win.
yeah. And then you can have like whatever the Duncan maybe.
Yeah, Dizzy Duncan. Yeah, that's the one.
No, not that one. The crossbow dude
Oh,
who turns into a werewolf.
that one's actually pretty fun for me to play. I enjoy that one because it's
I never really did like that, and that's because you have to build your deck weirdly, because you need a deck that works when you are in melee form, and also works when you're in ranged form. But it's really hard to make a deck that can actually use his perks efficiently.
I didn't
That,
have too much problem with that one, but I also didn't play it religiously to know the finer tunes of things. I've just had good luck when I've played them and been able to get Legionnaires. So,
yeah. But overall, I actually did really like adventures. I thought they showed a lot of promise. I would
mhm.
like to see more adventures with more masters, some changes to the deck building rules, maybe. I didn't love that you had to add cards. It made it really hard to get an efficient cycle deck.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that's one change I would make. And then just adjusting some of the relics. Like, Mana Mauler is just a really unsatisfying thing to get.
That's the one
Uh,
when you're at above a mana cost it does damage, right?
yeah, when you have Mana Surge, it deals 10 damage every second, which
Yeah.
is just not worth it. And yeah, I liked the Gorak Gate boss. I think that boss was hilarious. I loved the one that summoned a Scrat every time you damaged it. One
Mm-hmm.
of my favorite games was when I had 3 Blastmancers and I discovered that Blastmancers happen to damage at such a specific interval that they never switch over to hitting the face. They just keep hitting the Scrats that are getting summoned when you damage
Mm-hmm.
face, and the opponent just dies as they keep summoning more Scrats that are getting Blastmancered. It was beautiful.
And I think that's kind of the highlight of this mode, though, is that it's the silly interactions that you're there for.
Yep,
It's
yep.
not you're not there for like quality gameplay and quality strategy. You're kind of hoping you can get more silly interactions that just are like, all right, I summoned this. It's split into this many units. They all have this perk bonus onto them. They just kind of roll over, and then it just is hilarious to watch.
Yeah, I was there for, playing Fergus and having the relic that makes all my cards cost at most 5 mana, and also the relic that casts Spawn of Fury on every minion I play, and having a deck full of Colossus, and just playing 3 Colossus for 15 mana that turn into 6 Colossus that all have Rage and all got Nether Stepped. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. And so I guess we'll jump to the next battle pass very quickly just to talk about their expedition because that is on their page. They advertise a new expedition. Now, I did not play this on PTR. I don't know what's being added. I know nothing about this. I'm assuming it's themed after the current battle pass. Um,
Yeah. Um, I I'm going to reserve judgment until I play it, but I think that, more adventure content is good.
yeah. Will it do what do you want in a new adventure? Like ultimately, I know there's gonna be new levels.
What I want in a new adventure is I want our selection of masters to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I want some new relics. I want it to kind of feel like it's the same basic structure, but everything else about it changes so that you actually have to consider what you're doing and decide how you want to change as a result.
Yeah, because in the last one, not that anybody actually paid attention to the story, but they tied in the that battle pass to the story, and the masters that they chose were tied to the battle pass. So I would hope to see a Zenchi master, ideally, if they could add some new ones. That would
Yeah.
give me. I'd go
It,
back and play through it if there's new masters.
yeah. It should be interesting and I'd like to see it. But I think that this adventure had some really great points in it. I think that you know, it wasn't the most balanced.
Mm-mm. No.
It was There were quite a few bugs. I discovered a bug on one of my runs where the opponent was Bara, and somehow I got a bug where werewolves could not damage my face.
Hmm. That sounds pretty useful for you.
Yeah, it was an amazing bug to have against Bara. They had 35 werewolves on my face that I ignored. And then I killed them, and then it just let me progress even though I was at negative 4,000 health or something.
Well, they had a bug tied to it that you could take the mana rate from Expedition and then carry it into your adventures matches. You could just have a higher mana rate too, which was a convenient bug for people who knew about it. I never figured out how to do it, nor did I try to reproduce it. But that was not the only bug that came out with that battle pass. Which,
Oh,
bear with me for a second. I forgot to plug in his screen for this next part.
We're doing it
We're doing it
live.
live.
You disappoint me.
Oh, no one saw this. This is really bad. I
Everyone saw it. I I encourage all of you in the chat to clip this entire section.
No one saw this.
Clip it, please.
Well,
Oh my goodness.
no one saw this.
The content.
This is what happens when
Yes, we
I.
will be discussing. I do believe that this will be the Glenn's brew bug that we will be discussing
Yeah, I do
next.
not have video of it, but we are gonna go through this battle pass now. Um,
Um, have
so,
oh
okay,
Westlin.
I know, I'm really good at being prepared. Okay, so the battle pass. So we're gonna start off by discussing this current battle pass, and we're gonna go card by card, going through the battle passes. No,
I'd just like to start with my general impressions of the battle pass before we dig into specific cards.
okay,
And I believe that we're going to have a bit of a disagreement here, but I liked this battle pass, and I actually would say that it is one of my. I would put this as one of the better battle passes that's been released.
okay.
I
Um,
don't think it's my favorite per se, but I think it is a good display.
Um, my problem is I think only one card out of the whole thing was like meta relevant to me, and I think everything else was kind of meh, like or uninteresting. So
I don't disagree, but I kind of liked that.
I I
So I
guess
guess this, yeah, I guess this is the kind of difference here. I, I mean, probably my least favorite battle pass was the accursed wolves one
yeah, that's my least favorite too.
because
Every
that
every
battle
card
pass,
got bug fixed or nerfed, and it's also been the
yeah,
largest sources of game breaking bugs.
and
It's
it still has a bunch of cards that they've found impossible to balance and that have dominated competitive play just because they are so strong. And I don't really like battle passes that really change the meta and force in specific metas for a while. Was one of the things I really didn't like about Sand Wars when they were trying to get, when they were still adjusting Ritual of Servitude. I did not like that there was a while there where Ritual of Servitude just was the only deck you were seeing on ladder. Um,
well, I mean,
so I
I
do like, in theory, a battle pass that is designed to have cards that you might tech in and that you might, be able to run, but aren't so dominant that they're going to become the new meta.
I
I
don't.
think the problem with this one is they went a bit too far the other direction and none of the cards mattered enough to even be teched in.
What you mean? People aren't mainboarding Caber Tosser in all their decks?
No, they are not. That is what I mean.
All right. Yeah, no, my overall impressions, and I'll kind of give my actual overall thoughts at the very end of running through this, but I just want to start with the first thing I care about in a battle pass, because this is what you're actually paying for in the content, realistically, is the skins. I'm not showing a picture of the King's cool one, but we have Stoutheart, Milloween, and Mountain Shaper Volko, which are the two main skins from the battle pass. And um, do you? Let's go to the Volko one. Do you like the Volko skin?
Nope.
All right, moving on. I don't like it either. It just looks kind of like. It's not that I hate it, but I don't use it. I sometimes
It
use the
just
Jade one. Sometimes I don't use any skins for Volko because I don't know if
it
I've
just
liked one.
doesn't look like how I expect Volko to look.
But then the Jade one was kind of like looked didn't look like Volko at all. So I mean, it was kind of like
Yeah, but it's I think the issue here is like this Volko look doesn't look like the Volko I'm expecting, but also it looks kind of like Volko, so it just feels like the model has changed and no one told me rather than a skin.
yeah. This could if somebody changed this to the base model, I probably would have not actually noticed right away. I would have been like I mean, there's some
Yeah.
Stormbringer skins where they look like that are like model changes that don't look like model changes.
Yeah, I
However,
think
sorry, the
yeah, I
Millowing
think my
skin.
issue with this is just it's too in the same general aesthetic of the default skin while not being that similar, and it doesn't, like, I can tell it's a Volko skin, but it doesn't feel like it should be a Volko skin.
Yeah. However, the Millow skin is awesome. I love this skin. Unfortunately, they one upped it like really close by with their Christmas skin, which was even better. So, but I do like this Millow skin edition, and I thought this was a pretty good for the battle pass to me. And then there's the emotes that I use the beer one because it's like inoffensive, except it doesn't seem to work when I use it in game because it just is a floating beer rather than doing a cheers thing. So I don't know what's up with that. But
I didn't like this Milo skin.
no, but you don't.
No.
But I think that's just because you don't like girls.
I mean, that's fair, but
Um,
I still just I don't know. It feels really just not exciting. Like, it doesn't look like it is a skin for someone like Milloween. It looks a bit too dour for the magic of Milloween.
I don't know. I thought it kind of had a cool Winter Frost vibe. It kind of made me think of Guild Wars 2 a little bit. It looked like a character out of that. So that
I
was
mean,
where I liked it.
kind of, but I think it's just it's I mean, it does remind me of like an MMO player, but I don't want to be reminded of an MMO player
Yeah.
in the design. I think it's one of the problems with Stormbringer. Stormbringer's just too generic.
I think with Milo, I probably default to recolors the most, though. Just like the Azure recolor I liked a lot, and then just the dark one with the glowy stuff, because I've liked all of those ones in the line.
All right. Well, let's continue on to the actual Battle Pass
All right.
cards.
Just a quick comment. I liked King Cool's. I just didn't pull a picture for it. Thought it was decent. All right. First of the Battle Pass stuff is because these are fun cards to make fun of. Caber Tosser and Laylo's Vortex. I have seen people play Laylo's Vortex. I'm sure it does things, but I haven't noticed it do things.
Um, yeah, I don't know. The Vortex feels very underwhelming all of the times I've seen it. But yeah, I agree with the chat. You have to use it in kind of weird ways. Like, you have to be prepared to use it to get your minions somewhere or to pull their minions out of range, and like all of the uses of it are a bit clunky and not quite satisfying like I want a spell to be. Caber Tosser is just
I don't.
ugh.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, Helgi, the Vortex emo is not part of the Battle Pass. It was part of the DLC that you could buy or get for free in the first month, which it's a interesting system, and then you get it again eventually when the Twitch gives you an extra thing. I don't hate the card. I just don't use it. It's 4 mana for 100 damage, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Caber Tosser though, I have more to talk about because he is just boring. I don't know why I would run him over Scott the Sensitive Savage or even the Woodsman. His revelry mechanic is really bad for a 6 mana unit to just get the Caber again. It's not a very impressive nor effective card. I have
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think they could knock Caber Tosser like down to 4 mana and it still wouldn't be that
well, okay,
impressive.
4 mana would be really impressive. 600 health at 4 mana, but
It'd be
you
a good
exaggerated a little hard there. But it's one of the ones where if they buffed it slightly or made its Caber do more, I mean, because his Caber is 160 damage in a square in front of him, which isn't like nothing, but I don't really think about it. I don't like I didn't know it was 160 damage until I looked at it just moments ago. Um,
Yeah, I just think it never feels like it's worth 6 mana,
hmm
and doesn't feel like it has enough DPS to justify its existence.
Well, and it's kind of it's kind of competing with some other good cards in this spot. Is it still? Yeah. So then it's competing with like Cleaver. I'm like, well, probably
Yeah,
just gonna run
well,
Cleaver.
even more importantly, I think like the problem I have with Caber Tosser is if you're if the plan with Caber Tosser is clear the ads to their push,
hmm
it does it once and then they can just play more stuff and goodbye the value of Caber Tosser. I don't see why you would use it over a Whirly Scrat or a Fire Imp or like anything else that can actually hit their back line.
Well, yeah, it's not gonna clear as quick either as a Whirly
Right.
because it just goes back to a regular fighter, which or it goes to like a regular woodsman stats, but the whole reason of using woodsman was to frenzy it, except they changed that, and I think I don't know if that's our next card. I don't know the order that these are in, so we will find out. No, we're on to Mountain Shaper and Frostfeather Flyby.
The two best cards of this battle pass. Do not at me.
Okay, I at least agree with Frostfeather Flyby, and that is my favorite card of the battle pass. Um,
Um, I do have some issues with Feather Flyby. Um, the fact that it summons the Frost Feathers and they actually are like minions means that a lot of stupid things can happen. Like your opponent gets Spirit Mancer spirits from the Frost Feather Flyby,
it's
or gets to Blast Mancer it, or you're playing Mordar, your ally uses the spell, they don't realize it summons things, and you have rezzed a Frost Feather. There's
yeah.
a lot of really funny interactions like that, but I do think it's actually a good card. I think one of the underrated parts of it is that it is really good at it is a good removal, but it also is just a good card to throw on big minions because that slow mechanic can really punish some of them.
And I will say that it was kind of a weird card to get used to, and I had to explain to people who like when it first came out how you actually target with the card, because it targets you target the units and then it goes to where they will be. It where a lot of people are like used to like predicting where a unit is. Like if you like I completely like when I first played it, I completely whiffed on a rammer because I'm like, oh, he's gonna be here when I this, so I need to play ahead of him, and so I just clicked in front of him, and it didn't. And then they didn't go anywhere. They didn't even launch because I didn't even consider that I'm just targeting the units, and it flies to the location. So it was kind of a hard card to get used to, and then it started shutting down some of the meta cards I really hated. Like it was a really good utility against the border patrol decks that were going around, as it just completely nullified their damage output. So
Yeah. Um yeah, it's an interesting card. I think as a spell it has its uses, but it's just I don't know that it's ever been strong enough to justify running it over some other spells.
I I think it does, but um, it's I don't know. For 2 mana, it's one competition in that slot is Shockrock, and I think they serve very different purposes. But Frostfeather
Yeah.
Flyby, if in certain decks, can kind of just like it kind of neuters decks outright,
Yeah.
which feels a
Mountain
little
Shaper I
yeah.
love. Mountain Shaper
yeah.
I think is really good.
This is the first time we've had a how long a card stays in your hand is how strong it is mechanic in the game. So
Yeah, I really that's one of so Mountain Shaper I like that they're introducing new mechanics like that. The knockback is something we've seen before, but it's still an interesting thing to see on a spell.
it's a different utilization of it though. Like it feels
Yeah,
different.
yeah, because the Harb knockback is a really long knockback, and most things die when Harb hits them.
Yeah.
Mountain Shaper still also kills a lot of things, but Mountain Shaper is just a. It's a really good threat. I think that's one of the things I love about Mountain Shaper is a lot of spells, the removal aspect of them is present, but opponents kind of will force you to actually use the removal. Mountain Shaper can really dictate how much of a push your opponent can actually do, because if they overinvest, you just Mountain Shaper, their entire push dies, and then they die shortly thereafter because they've wasted a bunch of mana.
I think it's a little more impactful in twos than it is in ones in my mind, because that's where you
I
see a
would
lot
agree.
of committal to big pushes in twos, where in ones or in solos it's like I don't necessarily like some decks never commit to a push, and then Mountain Shapers like just doesn't have value. It's not that it's
Yeah,
bad, but it becomes more of a tech card than
yeah, I think it is. It is a good removal. I think it's one of the few things that is just a guaranteed removal spell, even for big units. Like, Beam can take out some things, but they can. There's, a lot of mana investment there.
but it is.
Beam Storm is not reliable.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about Mountain Shaper is it is a little weird because we haven't seen a lot of spells that were strictly meant to be defensive.
This is true. Mountain Shaper is only defensive, but I don't mind that. I think it's, you
It's
know,
a little expensive for maybe not for its ability, but just for something that's only defensive. And I guess it depends on how you build it into a deck. I haven't
yeah,
really.
I could see it. I think the problem with making it any cheaper, though, is that you would end up having problems with, like, oh, the Apep got a future present Mountain Shaper that's 3 mana. I will never successfully push, or
Yeah,
Morelias that bring Mountain Shaper and are consistently discounting it. I think this mana is kind of necessary to ensure that people can't get too abusive with some of the discount
yeah.
potentials.
I guess I'd like to see them do another defensive spell in a similar vein that's only used defensively. I mean, they've had other things with the defensive tag on them, but they didn't weren't actually defensive by nature. And so I guess
Yeah,
I'd
like
like to.
once bitten can only be cast on your side, but
That's not
once
defense.
bitten is
That's
not
a
a defensive spell.
Yeah. So I'd like to see something like that in a lower mana slot instead of like just to give you an alternative of hey, I want something because then like we've had the defensive building in Grasping Thorns or whatever it's called. Not Grasping Thorns.
Yeah.
What is
Well,
that
I
card
mean,
called?
most it is Grasping
Oh,
Thorns,
okay. I was
but also, Magma Cannon, Ghost Turret, Laser
yeah,
Turret.
yeah.
I
I
mean, you can use Magma Cannon and Laser Turret a bit offensively if you play them right at the bridges, but it's still,
mhm.
they are not really things you use to supplement your push.
Yeah, I guess Arcane Ring's technically a defensive spell, but yeah, there's just been. I would like to see more of a lower cost, lower curve thing. Okay, but we have to jump on to the next
Yeah.
set of cards. All right, we got to talk about Frost Feathers and Woodsman. So this text is wrong for Woodsman because I took this from the website and they changed it since then. So release Woodsman with Frenzy. That was that was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
It was
I think it was more of a
Rip
twos
Woodsman.
Rip Woodsman. No, I didn't actually enjoy it that much. It was I definitely beat it a lot, but it was also like you could have
Yeah.
some you could lose to that deck even if like it was kind of a it played itself. Put one Woodsman next to the next Woodsman, throw Rage, hope they do enough damage. Start do it, play it on Mordar, so once you summon it, then you have more mana to commit to the next thing. I think Frostfeather and Woodman were designed to go together, though.
Yeah. Frost Feathers. Oh, Frost Feathers. I love the Frost Feather card not because it's good. I love it because of like how not worth the card is.
I wanted them to be better, but I just almost always use Flyby because it's easier for me to target the back line, where Frostfeather's can only target the front line till the unit dies. And I
Frost Feathers is just such a meme card. They're so derpy. They just They don't do anything. I love how pointless the card is. Woodsman was fine at release. I
Well,
mean,
not in wild cards. He was.
yeah,
They nerfed it right away.
yeah, but at this point, the Frostfeather Woodsman is just not worth it.
Well, yeah,
You know,
because he gets rage, and who needs that? Like,
yeah, it's 8 mana for nothing.
I mean, there's people who like them. I'm not saying that you can't like them or find good uses for them, but I
I
haven't.
am.
Okay, but okay, right. You can't like double Woodsman wasn't balanced, and I think this
Yeah.
is in every battle pass. There's never going to be a battle pass where they don't release something in the next patch cycle, unless they screw up. It's going to happen because they
Yeah.
because Betadorf has never been consistent on this. This is one of the big weak things is, and this is probably a little bit of PTR's fault, but it's also just because there's so many changes going on that these cards. I mean, it's hard to predict the meta and what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all correct. I just think Woodsman at this point is not worth it.
Oh yeah, I'm playing Scott easy. There's other
Yeah,
there's
Scott isn't even really that worth it.
yeah, and the 5 cost range is like so bloated.
Yeah, I think that's one of the issues. But yeah, I don't have much else to say here.
Yeah, Scott exists. Woodsman bad. Okay. Okay, Glenn's Brew and Fergus. Okay, now we get to talk about Glenn's Brew. So this is the combo that they were trying to. So, for those who don't know, Glenn's Brew had a bug. Now,
How dare they remove that bug?
Somehow,
it was the best thing in Minion
people
Masters.
found out about it very quickly. I'm surprised that anyone okay, yeah, this card was obviously just a weird situation because.
Oh, okay. So, Glenn's Brew. It's not a good card. It is really difficult to actually get value out of it. The fact that your minion vanishes rather than dies means that, like, some of the cases where you might actually want it, like a Mordar to force a res.
Yeah, you can't use it in Mordar.
Not a thing. It's just so niche.
And then they brought in a niche mechanic.
Yeah, it just isn't. It's not something that's ever that valuable.
And then it had the bug with it, which was kind of like, okay, I wanted this card to be good, and I really wanted to try and make it work.
The bug was beautiful.
The bug was beautiful.
Was amazing.
So,
okay, so I think we can just so Glenn's Brew used to have a bug involved in which when a minion disappeared with Glenn's Brew, if you timed it correctly, and I believe used Spawn of Fury as well.
Yeah, you had to stun it during its disappearing.
Yeah. If you did it correctly, rather than the unit disappearing entirely, the unit would be removed, but the effect would be maintained. So if your minion that you removed had an effect like, say, a heal puff or a mana puff or an Azali, you got that forever.
Oh, I never tried it with Combustion, Helgi. I did not know that one worked for it too.
So it was I think one of the great things about the bug was it didn't feel that much like a bug because you really it was clearly a bug, but it felt kind of rewarding because you had to really try to make it work.
Yeah, it was a lot of effort to beat people with that.
Yeah, it wasn't like the old Wolves bug where it was like, this is clearly a bug and also it's horrible and it breaks the game with
Wait, which of the many Wolves bugs are we talking about?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Because that card, if we ever do a talk about that battle pass, I think I could spend an hour complaining about Once Bitten.
Yeah, that card had a lot of bugs. But anyway, so, like, the Glenn's Brew bug was fun because, like, at best you could have a bunch of free heal puffs, which is not that great. and you were stuck running Glenn's Brew, Heal Puff, and Spawn of Fury in a deck. So, like, yeah, your opponent will have a hard time killing you, but also your win condition is pretty shit.
Yeah, I thought
So it
these
was
it was fun.
I it was fun. I understand why they got rid of it, but it
It's
was fun while it
I
lasted.
mean, not all bugs have been positive. I mean, like the Morelio one with Jungle Jumble, where you just basically made Jungle Jumble like 7 Jungle Jumbles. That wasn't actually good to use. It was really funny, and I liked having like a 30 some card hand, but it wasn't good. All
The
right.
jungle jumble bug where you could end up giving yourself 9 blue golems and making your cycle impossible. It was
Well,
beautiful.
and then they just made it so Jungle Jumble just took the card out of your hand. That was the other bug that followed. Okay, Fergus, we got to be on subject. Fergus,
Fergus.
yeah.
Oh, Fergus. Um, not good. Very not good.
No,
Kind of
he's
pointless.
cool though. He spins. He just is also
Okay,
7 mana.
he's been, but like
I guess the problem
you
is,
just drop something. You just drop some random nonsense like an Illu Cleaver. He spins, killing just one Illu Cleaver, and then for 5 seconds he does nothing, and he's only got 600 health, and he dies, and you've wasted 7 mana.
my thing with him is he came out right after Rekinator 9000. And
That's
so
another thing.
there are two AoE legendaries that are fairly tanky. Rekinator's tankier, but he goes to like stupid mode at 450 health, so it's kind of like he's tankier but not tankier. But
Yeah,
like the decks that are like the Ritual of Servitude decks are still running Rekinator, but they're
yeah, it's just a
never have
better
run
card.
Fergus. No one's running Fergus in those decks. Like that, I
Yeah,
haven't seen it. So
yeah. I also just want to say the Revelry mechanic on Fergus is incredibly pointless.
well, the problem with the Revelry mechanic is except for Glenn's Brew, you can only use it on your side of the field, and most of the time you want to use it on the other side of the field. So
Yeah, I mean, you could also use like Frost Feather Flyby to trigger it, but it's,
can you?
pretty sure you
I've
can.
never I've never done it. I guess I didn't think you could.
I don't know. I don't play these cards enough to really know those mechanics. I just know that Fergus, the cases where you actually want to trigger his Revelry are so rarely like things that are worth it. It's just hard for me to ever feel like you want to use Fergus.
Well, I mean, any card that I mean, when a card's 7 mana, it's got to be pretty freaking valuable.
Yeah.
Is or you're playing Mordar, in which case it doesn't matter how valuable the card, as long as it's expensive.
Yeah, I think that Fergus is just not that great at its mana cost, especially when it just flat out loses fights to some minions that are a much lower mana cost.
Mm-hmm. All right.
It's
I mean, ultimately, it's just I like the idea of a spinning card, but we already have Whirly Scrat. Now, Fergus moves while he spins, which is cool, but so he's a little
and
bit more.
spins quicker.
He spins quicker. He's a little bit more of a Beyblade, but it.
Yeah, I think my general summary of this was all this battle pass had really good ideas. I liked the general direction this battle pass went in.
These
I
are
think
a number of adjustments that could be made and fix these things.
yeah,
To
I
be
think
honest,
this is a better battle pass just in foundation than a lot of the battle passes we've seen in the past. I think that this is, a better it's a better general battle pass to me than the Wolves were because ultimately this isn't nearly as problematic for the state of the game.
well, yeah, because it doesn't make me want to quit for a few months and then come back when it's fixed. Which
Yeah, and I think that's, it's a good thing that they did this. I just think they need to make some adjustments here. I think Fergus either needs more damage or the days needs to last shorter amount or it needs more health. It just needs something to make it feel like it's a 7 mana legendary and not just like
I mean, how much more
one
health does
bulk.
it? How much more health does it need to get better? I mean, It's what, 600 now, so it's 600 for a 7 cost mana is a little bit on the low side. um
I think
I
I
mean,
think in general these are all pretty good cards. They just need some adjustments. They need to get a bit standardized on cost and a bit more. I think they just need to adjust them to make them more in line with what we expect from other cards.
mhm. All right, so we got two more cards to look at. And this one was the one Arcane Ring and High Mage Laylo. So we'll talk about Arcane Ring first. Um, I don't know what I'm allowed to say against PTR, but on PTR it may not have cost anything, and may have had mana freeze too, in its development. And I didn't know if that was OP or not. I just knew I am still always worried about Milloween's Arcane Golem, and anything that synergizes with that is just I'm going to react aggressively negative to.
I didn't really care for Arcane Ring. I never thought it was that good, and I still don't think it's really that valuable.
It wasn't a 0 mana card. It had freeze 2, so now it's a 1 cost with freeze 1. So it still was the same mana cost. It just distributed when you paid for it. But its numbers right now, it's kind of crap, honestly. I mean,
Yep.
how much damage? Like, it's supposed to do 20 damage multiple times.
It's 160 for 2 mana. The problem is, however, the you have to cast it on your side of the arena,
And you don't pick who it
and
hits.
you yeah, it's really hard to actually make it deal all 160 to the same target.
Well, you don't even always, or just to deal it to the good targets. I mean, it could just be hitting scrats. Like, and
Yeah,
honestly, because of its range, for the League of Legends player, it's a little bit like Aurelion Sol, where it's kind of awkward to manage the range of it. And since you don't have control over units like you do in League of Legends, I can just plop down a Scrat Horde on top of your um, Arcane Golem, because I'm assuming that's the only unit you ever put Arcane Ring on.
yeah. I don't think it's a very good card. I don't think it really. It's one of the most disappointing cards in this battle pass. I don't think it even is that interesting of a concept.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
it's really not that cool. It's something we've seen in other games, and I guess the idea was to bring it to this game, but I don't think it was. It really falls on the maybe low creativity, low interest. Like this card I rate like a 2 out of 10 from like a design and play in all aspects. Like, I guess the only I'll give it maybe an extra point 0.5, a 2.5 out of a 10 because it's not OP. So
Yeah, I'm not very impressed by that. And then we have Laylo.
So this is one where I still haven't decided where she fits into all of this. I haven't, like, I mean, for people who don't know, I kind of took a break during this battle pass, and I still don't know how amazing this card is. I've seen it do good things, but it has like it's 5 mana technically with a
Yeah,
two
it
with a mana
is.
freeze of 2. So if you want it to be going right away, you have to be playing it at um, 9 or 10 mana, and then you'll freeze for 2 while she's in her mode. So what she can do is she can beat Harbinger,
Yep.
she can beat snipers. I guess there was a comment that she could kill dragon. Sounds ridiculous. Um, so
It's a very unique card, and I think this is another one where I will give them props. They did. It's a very unique mechanic. It is, in theory, a very interesting card. I think the implementation needs a bit of work. Its stats aren't really that great
yeah, I one time got this discounted.
otherwise.
Like, okay, so when you future present this, it doesn't really feel that good for a. Like, it's not like one of those cards when you future present. You can't just throw it down. Like, you have to, and that's a lot of cards are like that. But I was kind of
Yeah.
bummed when I pulled it in future present. I was like, this just doesn't like do that much, even discounted by 2.
Yeah,
Not that
I
it's
think
bad. Not
this
that it's
is
bad. I want to clarify. It's just it's in a you have to play around its mana surge to
Yeah,
do
I
anything.
think this is one of the cards that you really have to try to be a mana surge, and you need to know what it does and how to abuse what it does. But it's just not a card that you see a lot of play because it otherwise isn't that good and doesn't do that much.
Yeah, like it's when used correctly, I think it's a good card. It's probably one of the higher skill cap cards. I mean,
Yeah,
and you have to know. I mean, it's just kind of a you have to know what she kills, and you have to make sure you're in mana frenzy when it comes up.
yeah.
Um,
I don't know. It's been a card that I found really difficult to place just because it is so incredibly niche.
all right, so
And it does that niche really well. It's just, it only does that niche.
yeah, all right, so back to the full wrap up of this battle pass. I mean, what the good notes are, I'll tie expedition to it because it's part of it of the content that was released in that cycle. I'm happy that it brought new content. Like that's a huge plus because if I'm just rating on what you get out of a battle pass, that's not quite fair because then I don't get to count new masters when they're released with the battle passes and stuff.
Right.
Um, so this ties into the battle pass. It was the expeditions huge plus, or not expeditions, adventures. Expeditions are still terribly designed. Adventures are a huge plus. I didn't play them a huge amount, but it's still because they still need a little bit more to make them fresh. I honestly think if they just had like more, well, just more everything, more relics, more treasures, more masters, more things you can fight against. I would like them to flesh it out. If they did like the branching path mechanics that are used in other stuff, that would make it more interesting. So you can choose your battles and choose where you go. Because right now, you don't have like a crazy amount of choice, and there's only so much variability in how crazy your decks get. So it's fun, but I want it to be crazier.
Yeah, I did like the ideas overall. I think in general my summation of this is the battle pass is, I think it's a pretty good battle pass, especially when I compare it to some of the ones that came before. I think it has a lot of things that are interesting on paper. I think it introduced some new mechanics and some new niches that are interesting, fun, what have you. I think the main thing is just it needed a I think it just needed a bit more refinement. The cards are just a bit off in the numbers in a few different areas that makes it really hard to feel like you're getting value out of it. And
Mm-hmm.
while I think a lot of the cards are fun and interesting, they're just not they're so not valuable by
Well,
their numbers
and
that
revelry's not a good mechanic.
I
I don't
I
think it.
like the revelry mechanic in theory. I think its current implementation is not sufficient.
Um, and so yeah,
I would compare it to Zenshi Flow, where I think, in theory, it's a pretty. I do like that they're introducing some of these factional things like Voidborn Wound,
mhm.
Empyrean Army, Zenshi Flow, the Slitherbound. I like all of those ideas. I think they just need to put a bit more effort into all of them because right now, you're still just better off running things that have good stats
Mhm.
than trying to make the combos work. And I think that's kind of a good place to be in because the issue is if you get too far on the combo side, you end up with, everyone's running Legionnaires because they discovered Empyrean Army Legionnaires is just better than everything else you can run.
Yeah, I mean, I still haven't run it, but that's I also haven't been playing much. Um, yeah, so we have few minutes left. Um, but yeah, I'd give this battle pass like I don't know. If you exclude the adventure, it's probably like a 6.5. Some of the ideas are good, but I haven't been like, but none of the cards were strong enough to like push me into using them. And so that's a number
Yeah.
that would I would rate higher if they just brought things into line with some of the other cards in the meta.
Yeah. And I also think that this battle pass, if they would have like taken out Layla, Ring, Vortex, put those in with some of the previous Crystal Elf battle passes, or just found a different place to put them. I think one of the issues here was you were introducing this new revelry mechanic, but you didn't have enough of the new Stout Heart cards to make it work.
Well, yeah, because there's the three that are Woodsman, Fergus, and Caber Tosser, and Fergus you ignore the Revelry because it's just too hard to utilize. Woodsman actually was a good implementation of it. It was just too strong with it to give it Frenzy, so they had to switch it to Rage, which now makes it too weak because it was kind of all of a wild card combo. And Caber Tosser is again a the right idea of something that benefits you when you play it on your side, but the numbers just aren't where they should be, and it's 6 mana for a defensive card, which we already have a better defensive card at 6 mana with Mountain Shaper, so...
Yeah, I think they needed just to flesh out the Stout Hearts a bit more previously before introducing the Revelry mechanic to make it worth it. I think, however, when they come, if they do implement in some of the upcoming battle passes some more of those cards, I think it would really help.
Yeah. I think James 28 has a great point. Plasma Marine should have been Stout Hearts, and that would have been...
That is a terrible point, and how dare both of you?
Yeah, I think when they add more Revelry, I mean, but the thing is how, I mean, with how infrequent battle passes come out, will we even see Stout Hearts in the one? Because we won't see them in the next one. Will we see them in the one after that? Will we finally get Outlanders? I mean,
yeah.
And I think Outlanders has been something that, like, because there's random sci-fi units in it, it's kind of needed more to make it so that we don't kind of run too fantasy. Because it kind of, like, I liked it being kind of a everything in the kitchen sink in this game. And as they're factionizing stuff, it's kind of like it made me kind of want the sci-fi stuff, and I was kind of hoping that Outlanders would have been in this one or the next one.
But bring back Drone Force 1.
Yeah, exactly. I think next week we're probably going to be able to, since I didn't know how long we were going to talk on this battle pass, so we will actually get to talk about Jade Spark Jungle next battle pass in more detail, and hopefully have some tournament coverage to go over. Which...
Yes, and on that we should mention registrations are open for the upcoming tournament. That tournament will be Volco Cup 7, scheduled for February 29th at 1600 UTC. That is 2 hours later than usual to better accommodate some of the North American players who are, like Mr. Westlin here, whiny bitches who think that, ooh, it's too hard to wake up at 7 a.m.
It is. I'm a sleepy boy. I drink on Friday nights. How am I supposed to...
It's not our fault you're clinically depressed and an alcoholic.
I have to recover from my hangover every Saturday morning, and you guys are not taking that into consideration with this tournament, so... All right.
I have no sympathy for any of you, and you can all get over it.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Before we close out, just wanted to mention that, we want to go over the Saving Jade Spark Jungle. There was a Reddit post I wanted to draw attention to, and we'll try and go into it a little more next week, hopefully.
Well, we won't be here next week.
Oh, not next week. 2 weeks from now. It was... Yep.
So, our next podcast will be the 8th, starting at the same time, 2 weeks from today. We should by then have enough about the upcoming battle pass that we can actually go into it in some good detail. And we will also be able to cover the results of Volco Cup 7.
And that should probably take up all the time. We have we'll probably run a few minutes over because I just want to talk about this. On Reddit, somebody came up with a game mode called Anti-MM. It didn't get a whole lot of buzz, but it was brought to my attention by, I think, Salby. Basically, you can only play it in custom games because you have to house rule the game. But the stipulations are very simple. You cannot include cards that spawn minions for your opponents. You lose when your HP is 0, and you lose when you capture a bridge. So, you have to come up with ways to do damage to the other person's face without ever capturing a bridge, and you can't force other people to spawn units. So it's just kind of I like playing custom games, and one of my favorite things to do is like 2v2 customs where you have um, alternative or when you have alternative deck building rules and have to come up with like crappy decks on the fly. So I don't know. Have you guys ever have a friend? I don't, unfortunately, because Squid and I actually hate each other. But
Agreed.
um, I don't know, if you can manage to find friends who will play custom games with you, then yeah, it's one of the ones I thought would is kind of a cool one to try out. Anyways, thanks for stopping by. 2 weeks from now we'll have some new content, hopefully. Otherwise, we'll
Content.
say the exact same things as last week. Um, and
I'll just meme. It's
yeah,
fine.
all
I
right.
mean, I basically do that anyway.
But yeah, this is Westlin and Mr. Squid with TCL Podcast Episode 2. Bye.
Bye, darlings.